Hey guys, it's Demon. So, remember when I said I was gonna upload something in my last update video? Well, I ended up taking a break from Dark Souls 2 for a while, but in that time, Dark Souls 3 was announced, there was a bunch of footage that was shown off, and I am really excited for it. And, I mean, Fallout 4 is next month as well, so I and everyone else will definitely be playing that. I was thinking to myself, I have a lot of builds just sitting on my save file that I never got to make videos for you guys. So that's what I'm going to try and do here. I'm going to be showing you guys all the builds I have made that I never got a proper video for individually. So I'll be showing them off one by one, and I would love to hear you guys' opinions about them. Starting off here, we have the Balrog. He uses dark infused weapons instead of fire, as you would think. It's just a name that's stuck, and I liked it. The armor and weapons used are displayed, and note that the silver black sickles are not dark infused, as I actually got a couple more points of AR when they were not infused with my stats. The Chaos robe and the Katarina armor pieces really fit together a lot, and I really loved the fashion on this build. Next, I'll show you guys the stats for the build. In the top right, we've got the attack rating for each of the weapons the build uses. 16 int and 16 faith just for the chaos robe requirements, and then that is where the dark damage comes from for the weapons. Rings used are the Old Leo, Flynn, Ring of Blades 2, and Third Dragon Ring, and then there's the weight load of the build with the Zweihander. Some of you may already know of Vignar, my Viking build. Now here's Claire of Ferosa, who's actually Vignar's daughter. After he disappeared to Drangleic, Claire basically followed suit. But just like her father, she also has a thirst for the battlefield. I just love making my own lore for these characters that I create, and it's just one of my favorite things to do. As far as stats are concerned, they're fairly basic. Basically got a quality build here, focusing a little bit more on dex for the partisan's sake. And as for the attack rating, 432 for the partisan and 439 for the red rust sword. Now I could also use the Drake Keeper's sword as it's a quality weapon, but it only gives me one more attack rating than the red rust sword, and I kind of like the red rust sword's moveset a little better. As for the rings, they're pretty basic, and the fourth ring I have the life ring +3, but you can switch it for whatever you want. And then we have Cath the Lost. This was the build I made basically whenever the Bone Fist came out, and I was just having fun using it, but I only have the one Bone Fist. I don't have another fist weapon, so I don't use the power stance movesets at all, actually. I actually focus on using the two-handed moveset, which I fucking love. Stats are just another quality build, basically, as the Bone Fist. Scales with strength and dex pretty well. 323 for the attack rating, and a good amount of adaptability. Now what I did was, I'm actually using the strength and the dexterity ring on this build, just because it gives me 10 points just to put wherever I want, and having 40-40, you're kind of limited on points for a 150 build. So I went 35-35, got the strength and dex rings, and then I put those 10 points towards like health, adaptability. You can put those points wherever you want. And then we have Cly's the Possessed, which is my fire infused build. Just like the Balrog is dark infused, this one's fire infused. And of course, as the name implies, I'm using two possessed armor swords, one in each hand, power stancing, and also the Fashion Souls is a little out of control, if I must say so myself, for this build. And I also use the Charred Lois Greatsword and the Charred Lois Shield just to keep up with the fire aspect of the build. Moving right along to the stats, fairly basic, 50 Vigor, which has been in basically all the builds I make. Vitality is 17 this time around, just to fit all the different weapons I'm using. 30 Strength, 29 Dex, and then the Int Faith is just basic 10 for the fire bonuses. Rings are a little bit different this time around. I went ahead and grabbed the Fire Clutch Ring and the Ring of Steel Protection to +2, just for more fire bonuses since my Int and Faith is only at 10. So, went ahead and grabbed the Ring of Steel Protection just to kind of cancel out the negative effects of the Clutch Rings. And then now, I have something a little more interesting. This is Matilda of the Crusade. This is actually a 2-part build. This is my attempt of making 2 builds in one, essentially. And I'll get more into that later. So looking here, you can see Claymore, Lightning Infused, but if you go down to my stats, you actually notice that my intelligence is only at a 27. And there's a very good reason for this, which I will explain. This form of Matilda will only fight invaders in her own world. And then her other form, Matilda the Punished. She's the invader. She's the one that goes out and looks for other souls to kill, souls to claim for herself. So basically, what we have going on here is a kind of two-faced, alter ego kind of build. I wanted to try something different, and this was my solution. So, in Punished Matilda form, she drops the shield, the fashion changes, the Claymore is fire infused this time, just to kind of simulate her rage. And she also picks up the Majestic Greatsword for fashion, and that's the reason for the 30 intelligence and the 30 faith. So now you see the faith is 30 instead of 27 like last time because she has the Desert Sorceress hood equipped. Matilda always fought for a righteous cause, but she always had this demon inside of her, and that's what this entire build symbolizes. This build is going to give me quite a bit of probably negative criticisms, but I'm going to come right out and say it that this build has 99 dex, and this is my bleed build. The reason for the 99 dex is your bleed bonus is affected by your dex stat the most. So going 99 dex will give you the best bleed bonus you can have, and then bleed claws, because as far as I could tell, the claws had the best bleed already built into the weapon, and then it just scaled really well off of the dex anyway. So right here is a backstab, and that was actually an instant bleed out. About 9 times out of 10, a backstab will bleed someone out immediately with the bleed claws. And it's pretty scary to fight against, I can imagine, just because the way backstabs works in Dark Souls 2. So get one backstab and your enemy's already bled out. The only time it won't do the instant bleed out is if you're against a more heavily armored opponent, and that's where this build kind of suffers, as it does very little damage. As for the name of the build, I went with a fucking very basic name. I just called it Bloody Mary, just because it made sense at the time. And this build has virtually no defense. As you can see, I'm using the Pinel straitjacket, the bloodstained skirt, Shadow Gauntlets just because bleed, and then the prisoner hood. So, build's got a pretty sinister look to it, and that's kind of all I really cared about. Now, as you can well imagine, 99 dex really limits me on the amount of points I can spread around, so I did basic vigor and endurance, and then just put the rest in adaptability. The attack rating for the bleed claws is 298, but there's another weapon that has 510 attack rating. Incoming hate train, but it's the Chaos Blade, +5. Now, don't get me wrong, the only reason I have a Chaos Blade is for when I'm fighting someone who has incredibly high defenses and my bleed claws are basically doing shit all for damage. It's a last resort weapon, I do not rely on it. Now that that's out of the way, rings. Gotta have that life ring +3 because my HP is very low because of the stat penalties I had to take for getting 99 dex. And then, of course, all the damage boosting rings and Crest of Blood just for the bleed bonus.
And that's just about it. There were a couple more, but I scrapped them because
I wasn't too interested in the builds, and I was just kind of messing around. But that's gonna be it for this video. Sorry about the long delay in uploads. I've been busy at work, as you know, and I just moved into a new apartment. So I'm gonna try and see about setting up more of a constant streaming schedule. Try and stream on Twitch a little bit. But look out for that, and I will see you guys next time.